All right. Leo tarehe ngapi? It's 17th of March 2023. This is 17th of March 2023. Sheria Wiki edition of the 17th of March 2023. And it begins right now. When you join, please like when you like, we get to know that you're watching us, and after please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Kama kawaida tuko na Daktari Ekuru Aukot, na pia tuko na Prof Aluochier. Last time he was here is when he was pulling down the kingdom of BBI. You can remember Aluochier, the good farmer. They say that he doesn't want the city. He only deals with the government from the ground where the citizens are. Some Wanjiku ako chini hata yako pale Wanjiku. Ama yuko pale, please when you like, when you like, we get to know that you're watching us, and like please share, when you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Kama kawaida lazima tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe, alafu tukirudi na kuja kujua ni vipi. Daktari Ekuru anasemanga it's very unnecessary. Nasema tunaomba alafu tunarudi tunaanza kutusiana immediately after prayers. Lakini haizuru tutaomba tu.
Tukananga kwa pulpit kwa kanisa.
Ofeleka kanisa ndio.
Sijui kwa nini priest pastors wanapatia politician microphone. Why must politicians by the speak at the pulpit? So you're going there for one business, to pray, you know, and then once you have been blessed by the pastor, go home. What is this thing of turning the pulpit at the end of a service into now a theater for rhetorical speak, for responses to what other people said? I think for me, what is the right word? We are desecrating the church through our bad politics, because our politics has never been very good. Yeah.
But this has always happened ever since. Church and politics have never departed since history.
Not necessarily. It's true. There's a little bit of a connection on that. But I think using the church as a theater, of now some of the responses we hear from especially our political leaders, I just think it's becoming a bad culture.
Okay.
You know, when I used to go to church many years back, I would go to church.
When is the last time you went to church?
I can't remember. I think the last time I went to church is when we were sending off my former chairman of COE, Nzamba Kitonga, after he died. But otherwise, I'm not a fan of going to church, but doesn't mean that I'm not an atheist either. I prefer to be spiritual. And in my days in high school, when I was studying ethics, so I learned one thing. I learned to try and do good and avoid bad.
Okay.
That is what, by the way,
that is the best religious.
That is the basic. So, yes, I'm a bit uncomfortable when politicians pick the microphone and start speaking politics. Maybe if you pick the microphone, maybe advise society on certain things, I'll be comfortable. But when it's about responses, and they are competing, one is in this county, the other is in that county, responding to the other. Because that has become the norm now. Why should we do that?
Okay. Prof, what do you think?
Well, it depends on what's motivating the churchmen who give the microphones to the politicians. Are they after the sadaka from the politicians? Are they after publicity because the politicians attract publicity at the national scale? Because with all these media houses are actually screening everything and that's happening, so it gives them publicity. It really depends. Okay. As far as the message to the flock, that is normally over by the time they give the politicians a microphone. But I personally don't have too strong a view. Not really. I'm not. My view isn't as strong as Ekuru's. No.
Ekuru ni mbaya zaidi. Okay, hai dhuru. Mimi kama bishop lazima nipeleke kondoo mbele za Mungu. Sina option. I don't have any other option. Kondoo lazima niwapeleke mbele za Mungu. Haya, kondoo tuombe. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify you. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive today. We thank you for the week that has been. We thank you for this conversation. We thank you for the guests that have joined in, and every tackler who is joining in. May you meet them at their point of individual needs. For you pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Haya. Hata nione naamka mapema. And also I still want to remind you that kama ni mkulima, if you are a farmer kama Aluochier, kama ni mkulima kama Aluochier, hakikisha kama unapata chakula ya mifugo yako, kama ni mfugaji wa kuku, kama mfugaji wa nguruwe, mfugaji wa ng'ombe, hakikisha kama unapata chakula ya mifugo yako kutoka Fugo by East African Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Kama ni mkulima, make sure that you can get your animal feeds from Fugo and Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Chakula ya Fugo, chakula safi zaidi. Why should you choose Fugo over any other animal feeds? First of all, the quality of production is 100% safe. Unajua saa zingine unanunua chakula ya mifugo unapata iko na kitu inaitwa aflatoxin, especially kwa grains. Alafu ng'ombe wako ama mifugo wako wanaanza kuwa na shida kidogo. So this would guarantee you that the feeds are 100% safe and they are aflatoxin free. That means that if you're feeding your cows, you don't have any fears of feed toxin or feed poisoning. Ensure that your animals are very safe. Fugo, malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Kisha kama unaweza kupata chakula yako ya mifugo kama ni chakula ya kuku, hivi era kuku farmer, kama ni mkulima wa kuku, kama ni kuku wa mayai, kisha kama unatumia fugo layers inakupa nafasi ya kuweza kupata mayai zaidi, mayai marudufu kutoka kwa kuku wako, na pia nikisha kwamba kuku wako kuna afya zaidi. So you get quality eggs and more eggs and you ensure that your chicken are the best quality. Kama ni mkulima pia wa kuku wa nyama, you ensure that you get very good body weight. Unajua ukienda pale sokoni unaambiwa weka kuku wako kwenye ratili ama weka kwa weighing scale. Kama kuku wako anakulanga, anazungukanga, anarandaranda akikula vitu pale mtaani, unapata kilo ni kidogo, ana afya. But you feeding them with fugo chicken feeds, nitaomba kuku yako anakuwa na kilo zaidi, unaweza kupata pesa zaidi. So kwa hivyo ukitumia fugo feeds unapata mapato zaidi. Fugo feeds, malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Akisha kwamba unaweza kukimbia kwenye Agrofed iliyo karibu nawe, rush to any Agrofed near you. As a farmer, ensure you can get your dose and you can get your stock of fugo feeds. Fugo feeds from Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. Malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Haya. Munga Lita continue morning, tuning in from Convent United Kingdom. Going to be part of this morning's Sheria Wiki edition. Asante sana. Halibira. Baba the 5th and Zakayo must go. Aya. Kirwa. Kim Kirwa. Good morning. I'm locked in. Good to see you, my brother. Kim anasema hakuna sauti ndio hiyo. Anasema sambamba. Thank you. Joel Rama, Chairman Diaspora. Asante. Anasema good morning to you, my brother. Kim Kirwa. Mirema tuko locked in. Asante. K.E. Patrick, good morning, my fellow people. Say I to them. We are waiting for the debate. Thank you. Kim Kirwa anasema maombi muhimu sana is good for us sinners. Na ni ukweli. Mimi kama bishop niko hapa kwa ajili yenu. Watu wa dhambi zaidi lazima niwaombe. Kwanza leo ni Ijumaa, lakini mtu wange sadaka. Sijaiona kondoo ambao hutoi sadaka. Please anza kutoa sadaka. Kim Kirwa, you see they now keep Gozna. Anasema Gozman, good morning my fellow people, say I to them. We are waiting for the debate. Kim Kirwa salimia wana sheria. Salimika Gidi Msafi. The cry of the vulnerable is the loudest of the voices. Chiri Kabero, good morning. It's Friday vibes. Never forget charger na hoodie. Haya, kwanza ni baridi. Kim Kirwa. Naona tukienda YouTube for church services. Now by the way, there's the rise of television charges where people are preferring to watch their services on TV and YouTube and their phones rather than going to church. I don't know, is it laziness ama maamua tuko wenye dhambi wa ukweli sasa. Julius Rono Kiambu is watching. Thank you so much guys, all the guys from Kiambu and every part of this country as well. All right, let's get right into the conversation, and we'd want to start with our good brother Ekuru Aukot. I've been saying Paul Kosika sema it's good honorable Hanelt to go to church. Na ukweli mimi kama bishop naambia tafadhali tuendeni kanisa. Ukienda kanisa majaribu inakuwa kidogo. Lakini pia kanisa pia kuna, anajua Biblia pia inasema kuna mbweha ambao wamejivalia ngozi ya kondoo. A lot of wolves in sheep clothes. So ensure that if you're going to church also, kisha kwamba sio tunaenda pale kanisani alafu ndio mwenye dhambi zaidi. They say there are more sinners in church than saints, and there are more saints out here than in church. So ensure that if you're going to church, you are a good person. Do good to people and also do good to you and do good to God. Haya, Ekuru Aukot, nimeona watu wanalamika sana, wanasema umegeuza game. During towards elections ulikuwa Kenya Kwanza, ulikuwa umesupport wangwana, ulikuwa unaambia tuwapigie kura, tutume dynasty nyumbani, wengine ambao walikuwa and the whole population in politics. Lakini sasa inaonekana ya kwamba umegeuza. Na sasa ile shoka ndio umegeuzia tena ile serikali ambayo ilisema tuipigie kura na Kenya Kwanza. Na siku haiishi kama hujalima karibu mara 7 hivi. At least.
Lakini huwa nasema ukweli ama uongo?
Najua sasa mimi kama bishop naweza niuliza
mara. Hapana, lakini pia wewe kama bishop lazima uambie watu ukweli. Ndio unajiita bishop. So wewe kwa maoni yako unaona yale mimi ninasema ni ukweli ama ni uongo?
Tuambie.
Okay, first of all, Bitok, thanks. That's a very important question you're raising because a lot of people have been misunderstanding my criticism of government of the day. First of all, I've never been to any other political party other than Third Way Alliance Kenya, where I'm the party leader. And we started that party because I strongly believe that Kenya must have a different political conversation apart from what we've been used to. And I was also being deliberate that we must run away from political psychophancy, which I see a lot around. And people must have independent mindset. So, in 2022, my position was absolutely clear. As you know, I was running for office like I ran in 2017.
Yes.
Then funny excuses were given by Chebukati that my certificate from the University of Nairobi was not certified by the university. I've never known a university to be a commissioner for oaths and notary public, even though my certificate was actually already certified. And I used the same certificate, by the way, in 2017. He said that my check was banker's check was incorrectly addressed. I wasn't the one who, you don't draw a banker's check. It's a bank that draws a banker's check. So it's a beneficiary who ought to make those corrections, not me. Anyway, among other excuses. And of course, they also say that we do not provide a photocopy of IDs. I told Chebukati, as a lawyer, you have actually missed the point. There's nowhere in the Constitution of Kenya that requires that actually I submit a photocopy of ID. Plus, to be honest, it is practically impossible for you to go out there, photocopy IDs of 48,000. And by the way, we went to court and we won that case. And the Constitutional Court declared that requirement unconstitutional. So, when I was stopped from running for presidency, as a responsible Kenyan citizen, I had to take a stand in the choice of government. That's my right. I had to exercise my civic duty as a Kenyan because I want to have a reason why. First of all, the government of Kenya today does not just serve what they call KK supporters. It serves every Kenyan in equal measure. And part of the fallacy why I'm seeing in this administration, which is why people are saying I'm critical, when someone like Gachagua, a deputy president, who could be our president anytime, God forbid should anything happen to William Ruto, that he becomes the president, who describes the government as a company. And I know we discussed that.
Yeah.
Now, if a government is a company, and of course now we are seeing, and we'll come to these rewards of positions to political cronies. What about the 7.2 million people who voted for this KK government? How do you expect to reward them? So those are some of the issues that I'm raising. But fundamentally, I have never left Third Way Alliance Kenya. I supported William Ruto election for many reasons, and we'll explain that maybe because it's even easier now to deal with William Ruto, especially if you have to deconstruct the lies that he's been telling Kenya since 2013 up to today. We no longer hear about bottom-up approach. We no longer hear about we no longer hear about Mama Mboga. We no longer hear about the border. We even look at the appointments that have been done, even symbolically. Why couldn't you have because there are many border there actually who have degrees. There are many Mama Mbogas there with degrees, and I can tell you, taxi drivers and all that. That was the campaign mantra of KK in 2022. Now, I see nothing wrong with me, Ekuru, Aukot, reminding Kenyans, by the way, you are promised this. Look at the lies that are being told, that the economy has been stabilized. Today, as we speak, we talk, the dollar is at about 145. We are slowly turning our country into a two-currency economy, where our shilling is being suppressed and the dollar becomes the prominent thing. We hear that 16 billion was donated by Jill Biden. We have not been told where that money. So what's wrong with me reminding Kenyans that, first of all, the CAS positions are unconstitutional? Someone like me who participated in the writing of this country's constitution, I feel insulted because I know the views of Kenyans, what Kenyans wanted in their constitution. Kenyans ideally wanted actually a lean government. But we've seen what's happening. We've seen how now government, the cabinet actually, is being politicized. Those are not the views of Kenyans at the writing of this country's constitution. Kenyans wanted a separation from politics and technocrats to run government. That's why they removed the idea of elected members of parliament being ministers or permanent secretaries.
Okay.
So I'm just reminding Kenyans what they wanted. And to be honest with you, Bitok and Prof here and Ayiela can also comment on this. What's wrong with criticizing a government of the day, calling a government of the day to account? What's wrong with that? What is this about Kenyans' obsession that just because you voted for a government, now you should go into slumberland and just look the other way even when they make mistakes? When we are told the economy had been stabilized, I can tell you today, if you have got a WhatsApp group, and I'm sure you've run for public office, and so as Prof, the kind of requests you get from people daily, people even ask you, please, need to me a bonga point so that I can buy food. Yeah. Send me money to send my kid to school. Basic things. How has the economy stabilized? Those are the fundamental questions I'm asking. And see, not all of us are economists. Not all of us know about the global economy, how it runs. But at least, if you say to the Kenyan people that the economy has stabilized, at least explain to us how. Kenyans are asking basic questions. Yes, you were just stamping saying that you have reduced the prices of gas. But they are also asking another question. If you reduce the price of gas and I don't have food to cook, of what use is that gas for me? These are questions that we ask.
But at least it's the beginning. Tunaanza kwanza na gas, alafu wapunguze unga. Huwezi punguza kile kitu safari moja. Unaanza na kitu moja.
So in terms of priority,
gas iko juu.
In terms of priority, food is a basic need. People tell you in the rural areas we don't even cook using gas. We use firewood. So what will be your priority if you actually to address the problem of the bottom, of the boda and the mamamboga? It is food. In any country, and Prof and Ayiela can correct me if I'm wrong, if you look at national security of any country in the world, food is an ingredient of it, because food becomes an issue for national security. And that's why, as I said before, even in my tweets, the behavior of KK administration right now is giving fodder to Raila Odinga to take people to the streets.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Raila is exploiting. And I think rightfully so. Except for the other things of saying, we must remove Ruto, we must storm State House. That's rubbish. I think Raila is just inviting people to be killed while he takes off into his bulletproof car into his leafy suburbs of Karen.
Right. We'll get back to that. But that's Ekuru amesema, just because I voted for a government doesn't mean I cannot criticize it. Haya, tuangalie magazeti haraka upesi. The Star inasema, I'm under a confession. Former PM tells Luo MPs powerful actors pushing him to abandon protests. I'm under pressure to call off demo that Raila Odinga. Critics call him suicide bomber. But Raila Odinga says he won't back down. Siasa, will Raila succeed in push for economic revolution? That is on the Star as well. Cleft palate, doctors harvest tank flesh to repair girl's mouth. Wow, interesting. Lifeline for fallen politicians as CAS list is made public. Tunaona hapa Margaret Wanjiru hako pale, tunaona Devans Kidero, Daktari Evans Kidero, tunaona Millicent Omanga, tunaona Wilson Sossion. But now the Star, jameni, is this the best picture you could get of Wilson Sossion? I can send you another one. I think Star wachokozi sana. Catherine Waruguru, Kate Waruguru, kumbe Kate ni Catherine. Okay. Catherine Waruguru, namuona hapo. Dennis Itumbi pia yuko pale. Wilson Omanga, can see they are not objectives. SRC faults MPs for rejecting rules on salary review. I think that's one thing as well that we must have a conversation on. That is the dispute between SRC and the MPs. SRC faults MPs for rejecting rules on salary review. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has dismissed MPs' rejection of the regulations it fronted to regulate civil servants' pay, saying the lawmakers are not objective. Chairperson Lynn Mengij told the Star that the SRC is reviewing the way forward on the draft regulations. Killed by lover, tragic end for woman who fled abusive marriage. Ever had of jumping from the frying pan into the fire? Well, Mary Njoki seemed to have lived up to the phrase. In 2014, a marriage to a man only identified as Nganga broke down due to unending squabbles and domestic assaults. Right, that is a Star. Star zingine pia inaongeza drama kidogo. Lakini tunaanza naye tukisonga. Haya, let's look at the Nation. The Nation, leo list top Ruto's bloated CAS lineup. Well, okay. What austerity? President William Ruto added another burden to the taxpayers by increasing the number of nominees for the position of administrative secretary from 23 to 50, creating the largest executive in recent history. The list comprises mainly politicians who lost in the general elections last year. Wow, okay. Raila won't be intimidated to call off protests. Also on the Nation, bombardment as operation intensifies. So yesterday, the KDF or the police, the security apparatus that is in the North Rift bombed the valleys in the north of Rift to flash out bandits. Okay, imetupa hapo kidogo mabomu. Telkom Sheria Tani summoned. Telkom is an interesting story. So the government bought shares back from I don't know where they had sold it to at 6.5 billion. Now as we are speaking, the AG is saying, I don't have the shares. And also he's saying he doesn't know who has paid the money. Hey, Kenya. Waiting for teachers in disciplinary cases. I don't know if I ever want to live anywhere else apart from Kenya. I think Kenya is a beautiful country. The Standard, no lean government as 50 joined cabinet. Blooded executive president has presented 50 names to parliament for consideration of the position of chief administrative secretary, whom if approved will push a number of senior government officials to 125. Raila to sue Ruto over 82 coup remarks. Amesema ulisema nilifanya coup 82 naenda nawe kotini. Okay, Co-op, KCB investors melt to the bank. Mwamba rule, roasting women. All right, that is it. Tractors roar in farms at the sound of rains. Thank God, at least it's raining. May the grass grow. Protest pressure piles, that is on Raila Odinga as well. That is another edition of the Standard. People Daily, Paul Lucia top list of Ruto's 50 CASs. Taifa Leo, marafiki wala nyama. You should see the picture. Taifa Leo has... The audacity that Taifa Leo always has is an interesting one. Teuzi serikali ya Rais Ruto itatumia zaidi ya bilioni 4 kulipa mishahara ya wandani aliyotoa kama mawaziri wasaidizi ama CSS. Mabilioni. Bilioni. Nasema bilioni. Bilioni 4. Bilioni 4 kama waziri wa siasa jana, kulingana na makadhiri hiyo ya Taifa Leo. Ya KDF yaanza kulipua majangili. Wakazi wasema ndege zilikuwa zikitupa mabomu bondeni. Haya, rais abebesha Wakenya mzigo zaidi kwa kuteua washirika wake miongoni mwa naibu wa mawaziri 48. Minovu ya mawaziri ya wasaidizi. Now this will happen. Mshahara ya kila mwezi anapata 765,000 ama 1,765.
Na hiyo ni bila allowances by the way.
Bado. Haya, kuna mkopo wa kununua nyumba milioni 35. 35 million. Fedha za Bwerere kununua magari ya kibinafsi milioni 10. 10 million. Bima ya matibabu kulazwa hospitalini shilingi milioni 10 pia ama 10 millions. Bima ya matibabu ya kulazwa milioni ngapi? Milioni 3. 3 million. Magari rasmi 2. Anapewa magari rasmi 2. Dereva 1. Walinzi wasiopungua 3. So 3 and above. Fedha za kukarabati afisi milioni 5. Haya, kama ni mimi
manzana. Bitok,
Kukarabati ni renovation. So what is wrong with the offices the way they currently are?
Mimi sijaona kusema kweli. Sitakudanganya, nimeona hiyo ofisi.
5 million.
Yes, kukarabati.
For just renovating 5 million.
Unajua wenye
as if they are dilapidated as we speak.
My brain cannot comprehend that amount of money.
But now Bitok, a fundamental question we must ask tacklers out there. And this is part of the reason why I was crazy about the idea of punguza mizigo. What really is the value addition to our lives from this leadership that we are paying so much, that we are, apportioning a substantial amount of our resources? When you give somebody a loan of 35 million to buy a house, first of all, these are not homeless people. These are people who have been in the public service. They have enjoyed those perks years and years. So, and this is part of the reason why, for me, I'm so hard on this KK government, because they lie a lot. They lie we don't have money. But now you are lavishly spending. So what is the value addition of this leadership to us? What can you say, pick any of them and say, okay, this person has contributed to the transformation of our society by A, B, C, D. Like the way you can talk of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. They have discovered something.
They need to be necessary.
Yes.
That's a very good question, because ask yourself, what value is Millicent Omanga bringing to your life as a Kenyan? Also, nifundisho kuangalia limit yangu ya hustler loan, kwa sababu kuna hustlers wanapewa 35 million na yangu ni so 7.
35 millions. Sijaona prof. Good morning.
Si hiyo ya nyumba ni how many millions?
Uko salama.
My question would go to the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Okay.
Parliament under Article 94, Clause 5, is the only body authorized to make any provision having the force of law in Kenya, unless authorized by the Constitution or any other law.
Okay.
Now, under I think Article 132, the PSC, the Public Service Commission, can recommend the creation of offices in the public service. I believe the PSC created only 23 CAS's positions. Now we're having 50. So we have an additional 27 offices that are not provided for in law. So who is this who is making a provision having the force of law in Kenya, contrary to Article 94, Clause 5? And is Parliament going to be the body ratifying an illegality, an unconstitutionality? And if they do that, why should they remain as Parliament? Are they inviting us as a people to take them home? What is Speaker Wetangula going to do? Is he going to authorize an unconstitutionality and illegality in the House? That is my question for Parliament.
That's a question for Parliament. But what's your general feeling about the whole thing, the whole scheme? Even as you're asking the question to the Parliament, what do you feel about it? Do you think we need these people? No,
I share Ekuru's sentiments totally. We were of the view we want a lean and mean government. We're tired of all these bloated executives. I'm just echoing what you're saying. What is the additional benefit we derive from them? I'm really not seeing. Even the last 6 months, we haven't had them. Have we missed anything? We haven't missed anything, to be very frank with you. Yeah. And right now, some of the money that we're crying for should be going for, as some people are calling for subsidies, are going to paying people's salaries, hefty allowances. I mean, to be very frank with you, I don't think we need them. And if you don't need them, that money can be better used elsewhere, as was suggested before. Take it to the health sector. You can employ a lot more doctors and medical personnel for the same amount of money. Teachers, even policemen, firefighters. Essential services would be much better way of spending that kind of money than just giving it to politicians. That is my view.
So you're not for that. You
but
don't support.
There's something that Prof has hinted to, which I think we need to amplify.
The legality of the position.
Even the creation of a public office under Article 132, I think sub-Article 4 of the Constitution, it uses discretionary terms that the president may. Maybe Ayiela can see you have a constitution there.
Yes.
Let's read it for tacklers. Article 132, sub-Article 4, I think, powers of the president in creating a public office. And it says he may, subject to recommendation from. In fact, let's get the right verbiage.
So 132 4. Okay. Sorry. Where am I? Yeah, close 4. The president may perform any other executive function provided for in this constitution or in national legislation, and, except as otherwise provided for in this constitution, may establish an office in the public service in accordance with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission.
Now, you see, recommendation must come from the public service. And let's deconstruct that. The courts have since decided that the courts have pronounced themselves in what is public participation, so as now to feed into the recommendation by PSC. The courts have said public participation must be meaningful. In other words, there's some level of tangible evidence that there has been consultation. Members of the public ask them, okay, we need to create an office in the public service called Chief Administrative Secretary. These are the value addition. These are the gaps in government. There has to be a robust debate around that. That's what constitutes meaningful participation, and the courts have already pronounced themselves on that. Now, let's come to the word may. It's not a must. The reason we use the word may is because the president may now have to look at the context of Kenya, the cost implication, other pressing needs like Prof said, health, doctors, police, and all that, and say, do I really need to establish this office in the public office, in public service? Secondly, the president ought to have taken into consideration we are struggling with a huge national debt. Yeah, they themselves have said to people of Kenya that we inherited empty coffers. Can you today, Bitok, let's break this down to our own personal needs. Can you today spend money that you do not have? Oh. Can you go to a supermarket with 10 bob and do shopping for 30 shillings? So, and that's why we are saying this KK administration is manifesting itself as one of the biggest lies we've had in this country politically. And I mean, people think I'm very harsh, but I think if you contextualize the performance of all the presidents in Kenya within a certain period of time, this is the worst performing presidency we have seen in this country because of the things that they are doing that are manifesting themselves as really almost showing Kenyans the middle finger. Where we're in government, utadu, you know, that's like what they are saying. And look at the people they are rewarding. Some people even with terrible, cases in court and all that. What are you telling Kenyans? And I think, for me, this is what is encouraging Raila to go to the street, because anger is building up. Because the people there, look at the amount of money. You are given today 35 million to buy a house. 10 million for a car. The hustler, during COVID, could not even use an SSF card to be treated. And the other thing that really I'm passionate about, Bitok, Prof. and Ayiela, people say, oh, give us time to fix this country. Is Ruto a newcomer in government? Ruto has been part of the lies from 2013. We'll give your kids one laptop, computer, we'll do this, we'll create 3 million jobs annually, we'll do all that. So you cannot now... Yes, you cannot now come and tell us, after all those lies of 2013. And by the way, Aaron Cheriot, if you're listening to me, I want to have a debate with you next Wednesday.
He's coming on Wednesday.
Let him come on Wednesday. No. Because let's talk about those things. And so I feel that KK administration is failing and hiding behind the fact that we have only been around for 6 months. They are not new in government. Ruto is not new in government. Gachagua is not new in government. Some of the ministers are not new in government. Many of them have been PSS. They have even now recalled, I'm told, the former head of public service to Kenya, try and help them. So nobody here is new. You know where the problem is. And after all, you had a manifesto. You had a plan. As soon as you took over power, we want to see that plan into action. You had a program of action. So this is increasingly annoying, to be honest with you. And,
Prof, same thing to you, and I want to understand. 6 months, Kenya Kwanza government clocked 6 months 3 days ago. 3 days ago, it clocked 6 months officially since it came into power. Our brother Ekuru has had his own review, and as you can see, he's not very kind to them. What's your view? What do you think?
I'm a little bit more patient. When they took power, I was giving them 1 year to get their act together. 6 months should be sufficient, but considering the depth of the economy which they took over, especially the debt load that the country is carrying, I was going to be a little bit more patient to them, and I still am. I'm still giving them 6 more months before I make my review of what I think should be happening. But I don't like the signs that I'm seeing now, whereby we're back to wasteful spending. If we are having all this stress in the economy because of the overborrowing, and not in very productive ways, because we really can't see too much that the money did. I mean, fine, there are a lot of projects which went to waste, SGR dissipating somewhere in Narok County and not reaching where it's supposed to reach, so all that is just wasted money. So we should be managing our finances better than we currently are. We have a lot of stress on the shilling. I mean, we've lost over 40-50% of the value of the shilling just in the last 1 year. And that's just a reflection of the economic state of the country. And therefore, the more the shilling continues to weaken, the worse the economy really is. And therefore, we need to manage better than we currently are. So basically, at the moment, even though I've not reached the exam period where I'm giving them my actual rating, the trend at the moment is negative. It's not quite positive. So they really need to pull up their socks to bring the country where it should be, whereby at least we begin to be encouraged that we're seeing positive signs. At the moment, not really.
But Prof, are you trying to say that there are no wins in this government? I think you guys are being a bit too hard on these two gentlemen. Are you guys saying there are no wins? There are 0 wins. There are no wins. Huh?
I mean, earlier on, there was reference that was made to Gashagua's comment, shareholders. I do not think Kenya is a company as such. If you want to use a corporate structure, maybe you can use an association or even a cooperative. A cooperative, different people can have different shareholdings. But when it comes to voting, everybody has one vote because it's the interest of everybody that is at stake. And therefore, we have different people with different wealth levels in Kenya. But when it comes to voting, everybody has one vote. And therefore, each voice matters. At the moment, we're not seeing that being reflected in the structure of government. I mean, the government is skewed. I mean, just being plain about it, it's overly dependent on two communities. Generally, that is not the face of Kenya. If it was more representative, like based on population generally, then that's fine. But it isn't based on population spread. And you cannot tell me Kenya Kwanza having its national reach does not have supporters all across the country. I'm sure they do. And therefore, they can give a face of Kenya within government and not just make it representative of just two main communities. And that is creating a lot of disquiet. And that is kind of bringing back the calls we had at some past election, divide Kenya. We want to secede. We want to have two Kenyans. We don't want to be in that kind of a state. We want one united country. And the way the people who are running the show are running the country is kind of compromising that aspiration we have in our constitution. So they really need to get back to basics and do what the constitution says should be done. I mean, there's no magic formula. Just follow the guidelines that were provided in the constitution and things should improve. That is my simple basic message.
That's your basic message.
If there are wins, what are we gauging those wins against? You know, if we are going to talk about wins, we are going to look at the promises that were made during the campaigns, you know, and the tangibility of those promises in our lives. Like Prof has said, right now people will borrow you bonga points to go buy food. The other day I called my friend to sort me out and she's like, you know what, I'm just sailing in the same boat and maybe I'm even in a worse situation than you know, it's that bad. So if I am not feeling the change, the impact of whatever my government is doing, do we call it a win? Whose win is it? Is it a win for the people in power or is it a win for Mwananchi? And rightfully so, the way Daktari said at the beginning, ever since we got into power, mimi stories za watu wa ndudhi, mama mboga, wale watu wa chini, sisiki hizo story tena. To be honest, yeah, you know, we were told hii serikali and it's on record, and this is why I love technology. It's on record. Our president said hii serikali anaenda kuitengeneza na mama mboga, na watu wa wheelbarrow, vijana wa kaosh, au watu wa huko chini. List ya CASS imetoka. Manza mimi sijaona mso wangu wa Moturaki wa kwa hiyo list. Na nilikuwa na expect kumuona. I'm just, you know, it's...
Alafu utakula wapi Mutura, mtu wako wa Muturaki enda serikali?
Kutakuja na mtu mwingine, the law of replacement. Hata ukikufa hapa saa hii tako like kufi na wewe Gerald. Tunakureplace mapema very fast. Before Igomoti sets in Gerald, you will have replaced you. Tutakuwa tunamona hapa every day for the next 3 months, lakini tutakureplace. You know, that's how life works. And from where I am standing, I don't feel like there's a win, because this morning I've just learned that someone is going to be given a 35 million loan for getting a house. Na mimi nataka kuanzisha biashara, nimerushwa pale kwa Hustler Fund so saba hata ilipi permit ya business in Nairobi. You know, so it's a lot of lies. You're speaking from two sides of your mouth. You're preaching water and you're drinking wine. Alafu mko huku nje mnajiita truthful, honest, godly men. Hey! Woo! Jesus.
You know, there's something that I think we alluded to about the deployment of KDF, some of these troubled areas
in the north, yes.
In the north. You know, I think there are two things. One, of course, we know that the deployment of KDF still remains very unconstitutional. What the president ought to do, and it is there in, I think, chapter 14 of the Constitution of Kenya on national security, he needs to take this request to Parliament for parliamentary approval. And then the KDF have to be under the command of the IG, the Inspector General of Police, not their military guys. Secondly, this thing of bombing, just bombing. Who are you bombing? You know, the KDF is trained to fight enemy combatant. You know, so they use that kind of force. And I heard Kindiki Kithure say, again, this is part of the reason why when we call on this government, people say we are hard on them. Kindiki Kithure says people must move away from their homes and go where? What is the alternative accommodation or residence you have given them? You know, some of these people are nomadic pastoralists. They look for pasture. That's their livelihood. Pastoralism is a livelihood. So if you tell them move away from your pasture lands, you know, your water sources, because they want to bomb, they don't even know who they are bombing. Not everybody is a criminal in these communities. And we saw in the initial stages, when they were just arresting these guys, shooting them, you have not related them to the commission of any crime or offense. Yes, we know there is banditry. I have called it repeatedly, it's robbery with violence, because you are robbing me of my property using the barrel of a gun. That's robbery with violence. Now, I would rather you arrest that person, put them through the rigors of law, and we see punishment. Killing them is not punishment. You have to prove that they committed a crime. And I'm not excusing these bandits. And as a family, we have suffered from this banditry. Last year, we were burying my sister from this. But Even then, there's never been any investigation into who may have killed our sister. But now, to shoot people, bombing them, that's collective punishment. And it's against human rights, against Chapter 4 of our Constitution. I mean, and these people just don't believe in the Constitution. And they don't believe in the rule of law, you know?
Okay. What are your thoughts, Prof, on insecurities in the North? What's happening in the North Rift? We've talked about the banditry in Turkana, Kerio Valley, we've talked about Baringo. I mean, it continues to be a problem, like Kipia and Samburu as well. And these guys are so brazen that even in police, every police presence, they have continued to wreak havoc on the people. We had another old man, which was very painful. I watched a cover from Samburu. An old man was saying, tunauliwa hapa kama maumbwa. Chinjwa kama maumbwa, tunauliwa hapa kama maumbwa. I mean, it comes with a lot of pain. And it continues to persist. In a country that boasts of what it boasts about. The conversation is totally different the conversation here as you're having now is totally different from the conversation that people are having in Turkana, in Baringo, and Samburu, and Laikipia, the other side of Laikipia. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think the government is having it right?
Let's ask a fundamental question. Why is it persisting? In the past, I mean, I know Ekuru comes from there, so he's better informed than I am. But speaking as an observer in the country, we used to be told it was cultural. We need to go and raid cows for dowry payment and things like that. But this is more than that. Now we're being told there's an economic angle. All the flesh we eat in Nairobi is actually coming from raids from northern Kenya. And if there is an economic linkage, then we need to deal with that. In other words, find out who's sponsoring all this fighting, who's paying for all this high-powered military equipment. These, I don't know what to call them, bandits, raiders, whatever they are. Maybe they're just recruits or mercenaries. Because if they're serving an economic end, somebody's paying them to do their job. And therefore, if we can cut off that linkage, that will be a step in the right direction. Then maybe we'll only have to deal with the occasional cultural ones for dowry purposes, which these days is even changing with the normal change in the culture. So let's dig deep, let's name names, let's arrest people. I mean, you cannot tell me that our intelligence services are so good in picking up all sorts of issues like terrorism. Sometimes these days, terrorism, they pick up these things very quickly, and we've heard a lot of terrorist incidents have been averted because the intelligence system is pretty good. Are you telling me you can't use the same intelligence system to deal with these bandits or mercenaries in northern Kenya? I mean, let's deploy our resources where it really matters. Lives are being lost. Kenyans are suffering. They're being displaced. They're losing their property. And the government can do better than it currently is doing. It's a question of reprioritization and not being afraid to deal with the big boys who are believed to be behind it. Because if it's economic, there must be some big points behind it who are sponsoring.
Lucia, what are your thoughts on this? Mandu is the beneficiary of this banditry, because the big question is, we keep talking about the crime. I mean, there has to be, in any crime, there has to be a beneficiary. In any single crime. If I'm stealing things, if I'm robbing Ekuru of his phone, there has to be someone who's going to own that phone. If I'm robbing you of your jacket, there has to be someone who is going to wear that jacket. Either myself or there's someone somewhere that's going to wear this jacket. What do you think about this banditry issue? And I mean, are we really having the right conversation? Are we? Because I think we need to look at this thing from the end to the beginning.
First of all, I want to agree with both Prof and Daktari. And I want to say, when it comes to the issue of banditry, I feel like we are treating the symptoms, not the disease. Now, I can't remember, for the life of me, I can't remember who. But there's a legislator who, at some point, I think last year but one, when we were having the same issue, promised to name names of people who are sponsoring these bandit attacks, you know. And there are apparently people in power. So there's someone somewhere who knows who's benefiting from it. But other than that, there's a very important factor of this that we fail to look at. The security forces that we send into these areas are not well taken care of. They're not well paid. And Natembeya said this at some point a few months ago, and he said it very clearly. It gets to a point where they don't even have food. So they have to trade their weapons for a goat.
Yes.
And I can just imagine how indignifying that is to someone as a human being, first and foremost. You know, Gerald, if you got to a place where you did not have food so bad that you gave someone this microphone to just give you a meal, do you understand the depths of law that you have gone into, you know? And this is someone who's employed. This is someone who's tasked with protecting the country, but his country is not protecting him, you know? So we cannot keep saying we are giving amnesty to these bandits, so bring your guns, bring your weapons, do this, and then we don't take good care of our defense forces because they'll still take back their machinery for a meal, you know? It's people say Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. and I think we are putting our defense forces in the same situation. And until we get to a place where we deal with their basic needs, I don't think we are dealing with this thing anytime soon. Because they'll still go and form alliances to survive. Umemdeploy yuko hardship area, ujampatia hardship allowance, even basic salary yake haitoshi. The only people surrounding him are the bandits. Those are the only people he can get into an alliance with. Secondly, the training that our defense forces and police forces go through, Gerald, was inherited from the colonizers. Let's get that clear. We inherited the policing system and the defense system that we currently have from people who colonized us. Now, colonizers came up with the policing system because they needed to defend themselves from citizens. They knew they were stealing from us and they knew we would fight back. So they needed to defend themselves from us. And in that training, Karao akafundishwa, raia ndio adui. Over 60 years later, we've not changed the training curriculum. Tell me, Gerald, how a police officer will understand your constitutional rights when he's being taught that you're the enemy? When he's still being trained as if he's being trained by a colonizer. You know, it's so hata tufanye police reforms marangapi aipoa sijui from police force to police service, from light blue uniform to dark blue uniform, until we change the internal structures and the training structure. There is nothing we are doing. It is utter and complete nonsensical rubbish. So let's deal with those things first before we even come and look at the bigger picture. Thirdly, when it comes to the issue of banditry, this is the livelihood that these people know about. They don't know any other way to live. If that is how they gain their economic gains, can you give them an alternative way of living before you take away the only way of living they know how to? You know, mimi kama Mluya nimekuwa conditioned kupenda kuku. Uwezi kwanza kuniambia nianze kupenda snail from tomorrow. It's going to take time for me to acquire a taste for snails, you know. So you just don't come and go like, now don't eat. And it's the same thing when it comes to food security. When we tell people, we are acclimatized to maize meal. So I come and tell you, no, stop eating maize, stop planting maize, and go start planting cassava because it's drought resistant. Just because we need alternatives doesn't mean it should be the bare minimum.
Ayiela, I'll disagree with you, and I'm telling you this as a person from the north. Banditry is not the way of life in the north. Pastoralism is, or nomadism is. That's where the livelihood is. And not everybody in the north is a bandit. I'm not a bandit. I mean, I know many my people are not bandits. In fact, I don't even know anybody from my family is a bandit. So banditry is not. Banditry is crime commission. And the reason it is a crime is because, I mean, go back in history, memory lane, the northern part of Kenya has experienced for decades absentee government, the presence of government. Government is not present with the people. And when you have got, say, a semblance of government there, they send these young guys who have just graduated from a GSU or police, totally inexperienced, and you are right, ill-equipped, no support. In 2011, I was part of a team that accompanied then Prime Minister Raila Odinga and a few ministers to a place called Todonyang after the Merile massacred about 100 Turkana pastoralists who had gone across for trade. When we got to Todonyang, one of the things that pissed me off, I went to a police post called Todonyang Police Post, and I asked the guy in charge, have you booked this report of the killing of 100 Turkanas in the OB? Zero. And what did you guys do about it? You know, at the end of the day, I sympathize with that guy. And we were then with PC Warfa, the then Provincial Commissioner of Rift Valley. And this cop told us, listen, guys, you can blame us for all you want. But this is the reality. We are only posted here as 7 policemen. This is a border town. 7 policemen. Okay? At the end of the day, one has gone to look for supplies in Lodwar. There's about 300 plus kilometers away. At any given time. Because they have to get supplies. And that means it's not a journey you can make in a day. It probably take 2 days, 3 days for him to come back. One is either is on leave or sick leave. Okay? Another one, I don't know, I think what did you say about it? So at any time, you're either 3 or 4 in the station. You can see a marauding army of 100 people with AK-47 armed to the teeth. You're only 4 of you. Do you even risk to fire a single bullet? You take cover. That's what he said. And that's why we could see our people, as they were running, they were being shot. But we could not retaliate. We are only 4 of us. And you see, that's an open, there's no border post. That's okay. It's open. You can walk and before you realize you're actually in Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. So the problem in this northern part of Kenya is an absentee government to begin with. There's never been any deliberate policy to situate government in these regions. And so when we were doing the constitution, we felt that devolution, even though I don't necessarily believe in the 47 counties of Kenya, but there are necessary conveyor belt for service delivery, including security to the people. And today with a present county government, that by dint of Article 6 is supposed to compulsorily consult and cooperate with the national government, there should not be any reason why security cannot be devolved to each and every part of this country. And that's the language in the constitution. So you have got wards, and you have got these sub-counties. Surely you can deploy security in the sub-counties, in the wards. And it's not all the wards in northern Kenya that are troublesome. You can tell which ones. And see, in the spirit of Article 187, cooperation between transfer of functions between 2 levels of government, the transfer of functions and powers between 2 levels of government. There is nothing wrong with the national government, say now Kindiki's interior ministry, transferring a certain function and power to the county government, say of Turkana, West Pokot or Baringo, but it's supposed to be on agreement. So it doesn't take away, it doesn't belittle the office of Kindiki Kiture. And that transfer is supposed to come with resources. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the big national budget that you have here, saying I'm a national organ, and yet your people are being killed like dogs, like that Mzee said in northern part of Kenya, makes no sense because the constitution has given that avenue. And Article 187, transfer a function and power to one level of government if it can effectively be realized in that level of government. Mm-hmm. That's the language in the constitution. Then Article 188 even cushions this agreement more in terms of cooperation and reporting. So it does not belittle the office of the president to say, I don't need 100 police officers to guard me in State House, Nairobi. Mm-hmm. I need half of those people to go and patrol. Where are we sending our soldiers to go and fight M23 in DRC Congo, in Somalia, when we have got domestic tourism that are actually disrupting the economic opportunities in these people? Do you know, sometimes I was having this debate with some of my Kikuyu friends, mm-hmm. and I was telling them, you guys are not as rich as us. Mm-hmm. Imagine a pastoralist with, say, 200 camels. Mm-hmm. Do you know the price of a camel? It's probably upwards like 100K. Mm-hmm. So that's a millionaire, multi-millionaire guy, mm-hmm. compared to a guy here in Kiambu who is struggling with a small shamba of a quarter of an acre,
One pickup.
Yeah, exactly. One pickup or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Those are people are millionaires with cows of upwards of 200. So the government has never seen the economic opportunity in those areas and have never wanted to develop it. Okay. And lastly, Bitok, it's a fact. Banditry or cattle rustling, what they call cattle rustling, but for me it's robbery with violence, it's been commercialized in this country. Okay. Today you drive in this city, 5 Maasai cows are passing by, you will stop. Mm-hmm. How can 100 cows that have been stolen just disappear into thin air?
1,000 actually. I saw that.
Or even more. I'm just using 100. Can you ignore that? Yeah. Even using the many choppers that we have, during election time. And secondly, thirdly, lastly, what happened to the fake cop Waiganjo, who was arrested? We found out that he was actually a fake cop. He was just bidding for the big boys, the meat industry. Mm-hmm. We don't hear about him anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's politicized, and by the way, most people do not know that Suguta Valley that they are bombing is so mineral rich. Mm-hmm. Do you know we even have uranium in that part? Manganese, gold, and all that. Geothermal, where I come from, Kapedo, the war there has been sustained by a known family, you know, because they are the biggest prospectors of geothermal in Mount Silale, which, by the way, allegedly could be the highest deposits in the entire world. So this is an opportunity that we are losing because of a lackluster, fakeless government and leaders in it who do not want to see every county of this country contributing to the economy of this, or the GDP of this country. You know, once I was blessed, I was in 2007, I traveled to Umma Bay. And we were during the GJ Laws program. And on our way to Umma Bay, that time it had not been tarmacked. So we were driving a big Land Cruiser and it just veered off the road. And we were stuck there and we slept there until we were rescued the following day. Why? Because the road was bad. But now in the morning when we were driving to Mbita Point, which is where we had the meeting, I see these canters. Many of them are also stuck. So I asked somebody, what are these canters? They said, these guys are transporting fish from Fangano, Mbita, all the way to Thika fish processing plant.
Wow.
And that time it was contributing 7 billion in the GDP of Kenya. Supposing you industrialize fish production in Umma Bay, how many jobs would you have created? I do believe you could even decongest Kawangware, Kibera, Madare, and people will go and sort opportunities. Supposing you industrialize that oil in Lokichar, we Turus are very few. We will need more Kenyans to come and actually participate in the growth of that economy. Meat production in the northern part of Kenya, and you do some value addition. Why should we be buying belts anymore, buttons from China, when we can actually make those? I would like to say, Ayiela walk with a nice, lady basket, bags made from some goat skin from Lodo, Turkana, and we can style it. And we'll create our own industry. But just because the government doesn't care, government in Kenya thinks that it's us who win the election, we make it a company, like Rigiji has said, and we reward our close friends. So that for them is Kenya. That for them is government. They don't see government beyond their comfort zones. That's why you can see newspapers are rightly pointed out. It's a reward to a lifeline to fallen politicians,
fallen heroes.
I've got a question for you. Maybe the light touch. When are you next mounting a very serious bid for president? Because Kenyans need to hear this.
That's a good one.
Siku gani?
Amenitackle.
Naona umeketi vizuri. Umetafuta position ya kuketi vizuri. The board is on your court.
Me, I can mount that campaign anytime. But what my experience, what I've learned from the short time that I participated in this campaign, it requires people with very strong beliefs and conviction in themselves. It requires you to build a very strong team of individuals who have got self-conviction, who will not be swayed. Earlier on, you and I, we were discussing before the show that if you want to go into politics, you must have an independent means of livelihood. If you go into politics expecting politics to feed you, you will easily be compromised. And that has been my biggest challenge, to put together a team of individuals who actually will not be bought. Because as you can see, the big boys who have perpetrated the kind of system that we have had over the years will not want an independent mind like yourself, Ayiela, myself, and Bitok here, to go out there and tell our story to the Kenyans. And secondly, the truth for the matter, Prof, you know that because Kenyan politics has been commercialized, we need money. We don't need money to bribe Kenyans. We need money for simple things, logistics. And I learned this when we were doing the Punguza Mizigo. We went to 29 county assemblies because Kenyans supported the proposals. They were giving us as little as 10 bob, 20 bob, 50 bob, 100 bob, and that enabled us to go to 29 county assemblies to preach the idea of Punguza Mizigo. So a lot of things is needed, but believe you me, the interest is there for me, and I hope that you can join me in my next bid.
So ni lini? Unajua tuambia linamuuliza siku gani? Is when? Anytime from
I will go by the time frame that Prof said. Okay, initially I was also like Prof. I wanted to give KK 1 year. But it looks like the way things are going, we may have to start speaking very early. So mapema ndio best. Masani machache.
When you get back, let me look at the comments. When we get back, I would like to hear from Prof the conflict between the SRC and Parliament on the issues of PSC salaries and what the SRC is proposing to to public service in terms of salaries and allowances and all that. Now remember that this is a ticket that came in with a narrative of austerity measures, showing that the public service is not bloated, does not take up a lot of public money in terms of taxes. I would want to understand the conflict between, because Parliament actually should be the guardian of the people. Parliament is not the guardian of the executive or the leadership or the government. It is a guardian of the people. They represent the people. They legislate for the people. They take care of the interests of the people. So the conflict in Parliament between SRC and Parliament, ama watasema pia public servants ni wananchi. But anyway, we'll get back to that. Let's look at the comments. On YouTube, David Akero, good morning. 50 CS has equaled 50 more points of corruption, 50 more salaries per month, 50 perks and allowances for taxpayers to pay. Not a Baba fan, but looking forward to a long weekend. As I say, they're looking forward to a long weekend.
To be honest, that's an insult to Kenyans. You don't tell Kenyans that you don't have money, and then you keep on piling, creating new offices.
Right, so, Paul Kosgei, Daktari, as you criticize the government, which is okay, please give also suggestions of what the government should do and what the public should do as well. Cleveland Luciano, good morning. Viongozi, good morning to you. Karen Juguna, good morning. Tackle family, good morning to you. Good to see you, Karen. Cleveland Luciano, I'm one of the dissatisfied voters who castigated the previous regime. President Ruto has come short in terms of what was expected. All right, Kilbert K, I wish DP and President are listening to this show. Yeah, they do. Fortunately, what I'm not sure about is whether they'll take us seriously, but I know they do. They want, they listen.
They should know you have a constituency that listens.
They don't know you are a very serious person. Unafaa ni mtu serious.
Kusikia wanasikia, ile kitu siko sure is whether or not they'll take us seriously.
Why don't you invite Rigiji here?
Rigiji has been here before. I'm actually seeing he's on Kikuyu Station's note this morning. He was having a conversation with Central Kenya. I have sent an invite to him. I called him last week. So he said he had already done the collective interview. But I'm not a fan of collective interviews because you don't get to sap out what you should.
Yeah.
I believe that you need to be in a place where we can...
You send a message to William Ruto. Tell William Ruto, the Tackler Nation wants to talk to the Asla president.
And that is actually, this is an Asla TV. Yes. So he needs to come and explain to Kenyans what is going on. And ensure that they can keep that touch running. Otherwise... As they say,
akikataa kukuja tutajua tu wenyewe hiyo story ya kusema serikali ya watu wa hapa chini Gerald, tutajua hiyo ni fraud, kwa sababu akikataa kushuka hapa chini akikataa tu kushuka hapa chini there will be a very big problem. Tutakuwa na shida.
Tunaenda maliza yake Monday, sisi Tuesday tunaingia. Tunasema sasa we want an audience. All right, let's look at the comment section as well on Facebook. Let me see. Gidim Saga, the cry of the vulnerable is the loudest voice. Chiri Kabero, good morning. It's Friday, right? Never forget Charger, Dudi. I think I'd seen that as well. Kipruta Arab Sang, always loving the show. Keep up the good job. Thank you. Kim Giroisa, the kali na tuchezea sana. I thought nitakuwa CS wa health. Okay. Kim Giroisa, niko na idea nataka kumtumia Kip Victor. Morning Gerald Bitok. With the rains, things will ease. It will have a deeper effect to the cost of living. All right. Yep. So keep. If you are part of the team writing the constitution with 48 counties, senators and MPs, and disappoint, I am
disappointed. There are no 48 counties, correcting that.
Okay, so it's 47.
Si waliongeza diaspora county.
Wameongeza gani?
Waliongeza county inaitwa diaspora.
Yes.
Wa Kenya ndio waliongeza.
Na kuna Chinese county, Chinatown. You need thought searching. Ekuru Aukot, the economy is struggling worldwide and Kenya not excluded. We all feel the hit from slow economy, but unless we reduce the size of government, nothing will change sooner or later, even if other economic and political factors improve. Right? Kim Kirwa, the budget of the CS is very huge. This government wants to spend what it doesn't have. King Lee, remember 20th I'll be on holiday. I say from the 37th president to date, Raila Odinga. Kim Kirwa, budget of the recurrent expenditure is close to 10 billion. Wow. Okay. This title is just a reward, as DP said earlier. They are rewarding what waliwekelea bet kwa hii serikali. Hii Kenya ni kama kampuni, unakula based on your shares. Solomon Chaka, mahali tumefika na hii serikali watu wache tu. Wameamua tuteseke na hakuna mtu anajali hapa. Common mwananchi nafuatilia nikiwa Kakamega County Office. Asante sana. Ayiela Rama, CS Interior said the politicians, financials, and spiritual leaders supporting the bandits are known. They are yet to be arraigned in court. Are they sacred cows? If there is someone who needs to resign, it is Kindiki. Jolarama, yes, Lucia said again, Precambrian training need to change. Just as tomorrow, good to see you. Good morning, Gerald. Leo Shoni Moto, very disappointed with this government. It is unfair to bloat this government while we are in suffering.
But you see, we talk, something that Kindiki and some of his guys are repeating, and even the president himself repeated. You see, the president also made a very serious allegation that they know the people wanted to kidnap and kill. Is it Mada Chebukati? You know, that's a very serious statement coming from the head of the state. And then you're doing nothing about it. This woman, again, is the controller of budget, says, I was pressurized to release 35 billion. Every day people are confessing bad things that are being committed against the people of Kenya. But apart from that confession, nothing happens. Now Kindiki says there are politicians who know about the bandits, they're going to release them. Again, nothing happens. So really, do we really have a responsive government? You know bad things that are being committed against Kenyans, but you do nothing about it.
Last week, Rigiji alisema he's going to name and shame people who took money from public coffers a few days to the election. You know, in my head I was like, good idea, name them so that we can recover that money because our economy needs it. But up to now, a truthful, honest man has not named any names.
You see, Lucia, what they are not telling us, or they are not looking at the implication of what they are saying. Because if you know that somebody stole 35 billion, can you imagine maybe how much you have affected that sick person at Kenyatta National Hospital? You have denied that person blood transfusion, oxygen. You have actually killed. I mean, I consider people who steal from the public coffers as mass murderers.
Yeah,
mass
they
murderers.
are.
These people kill. They deny our children the future of their life, their education. And, you know, Bitok, that's why I don't understand. When these leaders make this statement, do they actually know the weight of what they are saying? It is irresponsible, utterly irresponsible. And I think maybe they need to shut up kidogo. They do their work so that we can go slow in criticizing them. Because every time they open their mouth, they say things. Why should I keep quiet about such things? You know,
they're actually giving us the fodder. They're actually giving us the fodder to just go after them, to compare and contrast, to see what's right, what's wrong, what happened where. But I honestly think that everyone is in on it. And this is because of a comment that Senator Ledama made on Twitter. I don't remember. No, I think it was under Eden Duale's rant. After Ukuri Atani released the letter. So he said, don't throw stones because you live in a glass house. So they're all in it together, because if they weren't, then chapter 6 of our constitution will be making so much sense. But nobody wants to arrest themselves. Nobody wants to hold the next person accountable, because that person will hold you equally accountable, and you have skeletons in your closet that you don't want us to know about.
You know where the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
Prof, the conflict in Parliament between SRC and...
Basically, Parliament has never really accepted SRC.
Okay.
People like Ekuru, Aukot, and other guys who are responsible for the constitution went around the country. They got the people's views. The people didn't want Parliament to be determining its own salaries, because they were sick and fed up of the astronomical salary increases that they'd witnessed Parliament doing. And more than a decade down the road, Parliament still hasn't accepted the fact that Kenyans clipped their powers. They reduced their powers. They haven't accepted the fact that the people, we the people, are sovereign. They still think they are sovereign. And therefore, we need basically just tell the parliamentarians, accept the reality. We are the ones who put that body in place, and please behave the way we are instructing you through the constitution. You ought to behave. If you think that salary is not sufficient for you, look for another job elsewhere. There are many Kenyans who are competing for that job, for that salary, and who are very comfortable with it. In fact, it's way above the average, way, way, way above the average. So there are no shortage. I mean, there's no shortage of people who want it. Now, that's for the MPs. Now, unfortunately, the MPs are now taking it onto other sectors, because they don't like the fact that SRC is constraining the salaries. They are looking for allies, whatever it is they can get them. If it's from the trade unionists, if it's from the public service side of issues, they're looking for allies. So that they can build up all this noise cacophony of noise, that SRCs, they demonize SRC so that the people get to the point of doing away with the SRC. So they can go back to the bad old days. That seems to be the long game plan that Parliament has. If SSC has done its job, it's used highly professional, competent people. They use consultants. I mean, they don't have the staff to do everything themselves. So sometimes they use consultants. If they've done a good job and they've come up with well-reasoned recommendations of what the salaries ought to be, we should accept that. Now, for state offices, their word is binding. For non-state offices, their word is advisory. So fine, Parliament has some leeway in approving or disapproving whatever it is that SSC puts forward on non-state offices. But I think we should respect what the SSC is doing. I really wouldn't go out of my way to support Parliament in this, knowing what's motivating Parliament to be opposing SSC time and time again.
Okay. All right.
Bitok, before we move from that point, if you look at this is chapter 15, commissions and independent offices. Okay. We are increasingly losing the spirit and meaning of that word independent in our constitution because of the manner in which the selection, the appointment of these people happens. So that independence is gone because when Kenyans gave us their views about what they want in our constitution, they said, please create independent offices. Yeah? And these independent offices must also have the backing, the protection of the political elite. I.e., for example, the president, and that's why the connection was that yes, you can have a recruitment panel, but it's the president who appoints. So there is a nexus between the independence of this office in terms of protection and the office of the president. But now what is emerging is that the presidency is not protecting these offices because the presidency has captured either Parliament or it's been captured by Parliament. And that's why you can see a lot of maneuvering, I think buying or whatever of MPs, people migrating from their political parties saying, "Oh, we're going to work with the government of the day because we want Maendeleo to our people." That's really a tired and old argument. The president doesn't give Maendeleo. You see, once you apportion resources to each and every county has got their own what they call CIDP, whatever, development program. So when members of Parliament say, "I'm going there so that I can make sure I get services to my people," what about MPs who do not succumb to the presidential power? So what the president ought to do, because this is the commander-in-chief of this country, is the most powerful person in Kenya, he ought to be able to rein on Parliament to say, you must respect this independent officer and what they come up with, so long as there is a justification. And like Prof said, to be honest, if you want to earn more money, go to the corporate world or invent an idea, become the billionaires, go to the moon. Let's associate you with something. But public service cannot be a means for enrichment of individuals. That's where we begin to fail. And it's true, you can actually see some funny character just because he can make noise from his constituents, wherever they may be, all of a sudden transforms their life. All of a sudden you see them, a V8 engine car has moved from this place to that place. This transformation, which happens in a matter of months, and we know what your salary is. So there's something really fundamental wrong with the way public service rewards leaders. It is an avenue for just theft and unjust enrichment.
All right. Lucia, well, it's still on you, Ekuru. Now, Kenyans are saying they're looking forward to the long weekend. Raila Odinga has declared 20th Monday as a public holiday, saying that India siku ya kupumzika. And I saw also there's an MP, there's Azimio MPs who came in yesterday. We had a presser yesterday. And they were saying employers should release their employees for the Monday they are available either to rest or to unrest. Either resting or unresting. How do you make of the demo that are coming?
First of all, let's set up the fundamentals. It is the right of every Kenyan or a group of Kenyans to go demonstrate, picket, or whatever. It's in the Constitution. That is Article 30. Is it 37 or 38 thereabouts of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights? So it's perfectly the right. But I think if the intention, from what I'm hearing, and where they go wrong, in my view, Raila has no capacity or even any power, any outer power to declare a public holiday in Kenya. Public holidays in Kenya are even listed in the Constitution. and there's a designated minister, I think it's the Minister for Interior, Kindiki, who maybe, for example, when, say, Eid al-Fitr falls in a certain day or week, he can then gazette. Raila has no capacity to do that. He cannot gazette, because for you to declare public holiday, it must be gazetted. And it has economic implications to the country, because for employers, for example, they know that this is a public holiday. They may know how to So it is wrong of Raila, and this is where I fault him. It's wrong for him to say that I declare public holiday. Who is he? And I declare kama nani? He's not the president. He's not the Minister for Interior. He has no power. He has no. He can declare holiday for his members in his ODM party as a party leader. Or I don't even know, he's a party leader of what? Azimio, ODM. So, and the laws in Kenya are very clear. You cannot be a member of two political parties at the same time. So I think to borrow PLO Lumumba's phrase that he's used the other day, I think
I've tried to have it on my mouth. It's not.
PLO Lumumba said that the Muzee is suffering from, I think, is what? Phantasmagoria. He's hallucinating. I did not know about that one until I called him last night and asked him, Prof, can you explain to me what this word is? He said, no, it is there. Actually, I went and Google it. It's true. It's a word called phantasmagoria. Describe a person who hallucinates, imagines things. So, for example, you see when Raila says that they're going to storm State House and Ruto must go, to be honest, I think he's setting up innocent lives to be killed, because that's a security zone, it's a protected area in this country. You can't try and do that. And I don't know whether that's why Ruto has also panicked and now is building a 15-foot wall. Yes. Si kuna wall. Okay, we can confirm.
Can we pass through that road after the show?
But yesterday when I tweeted about that, nobody from the KK administration denied. Anyway, so again, secrecy was never invented in this world, as far as I know. But I think it's okay for a group of Kenyans to be dissatisfied. And true, the cost of living and all the mishaps of Jubilee, KK administration, the lies around it, yes, it will take people to the streets. And by the way, I don't believe Raila will take people to the street himself, per se. Mm-hmm. It is the state of the economy, the prices of commodities, that is what will take people to the street. Yeah.
But
Raila also, in my view, is also exploiting one thing.
He's just riding that way.
He's riding on, for example, there's a serious joblessness in this country. I think we are talking now about 80%, if I'm not wrong. People are desperate. Things are not very good out there. So people will express their anger through demonstration, those picketing and all that. And obviously, there's always a leader. And so Raila, being the Baba he is, and the people's president as he calls himself, But, they have also allowed Raila to get away with many things. And that's what has normalized the political misbehavior or conduct, if I can call it that way. When Raila saw himself in 2018 as the people's president, took the Bible through the constitution, that was an atrocity committed against the will of the people of this country. And that has become normal. And Uhuru Kenyatta actually normalized that when he brought him into government as a handshake brother. And of course, they held both Ruto and the rest. Okay? So it became normal. So now, it has become that some leaders in this country, i.e. Raila and others, have become untouchable. They have become almost above the rule of law. They can say anything they want to do and get away with it. Because why? They are taking advantage of a weak political leadership at the very top, who are cowardly enough to tell him, listen, is the rule of law here? Because, even some of the things that Raila now is saying completely doesn't make sense to me. When he lost the presidency to William Ruto, there was an announcement by Chebukati. He has an avenue in the law to go to the Supreme Court. He accepted the verdict of the Supreme Court. Now you are coming back again to tell us that there is a dossier. This is what I got. It's not even explaining it. I think it's wrong. I think at the end of the day, maybe Raila is just tired, and because Raila gets mesmerized when he see crowds. Because sometimes when you sit with him,
mtengenezee screen ya 3D nyumbani.
Hapana, yeye anataka kiona watu hivi. Unaona baba anaanza ku
Aluochier.
Let me interject here. You mentioned there's lack of courage in the leadership in Kenya.
And also there's one thing I'd want you to bring out, Prof. Raila Odinga has continued to say that he is going to hold peaceful demonstrations.
Not peaceful.
I would just want you to swing in on that. Is it possible to have... You've seen what has happened in Kisumu already.
Yes.
There was a meeting, a CIK conference that happened, and the guys went there, wakakula kwanza, werevu sana, walikula kwanza, alafu wakapasua vyombo baada ya kukula. Watu wengine walikuwa na take away, mambo kama hayo. And we had a senator, Senator Sifuna, in parliament saying that yes, that is very fine. In fact, anywhere Kenyans you go and you find a government meeting and there is food, eat the food. Is it possible to, I don't know, even as you're giving your comments,
Fine.
You'll also bring that in.
Let me answer that one first, because I was actually in the middle of the spontaneous demonstration by the people. I think it was on Monday in Migori. I'd gone to Migori town to undertake some business, and I met them. They were very peaceful. They didn't beat up anybody, didn't harass anybody. They were peaceful. The one in Kisumu was not, because they ended up damaging property and basically trespassing into areas where they shouldn't have been. Basically, what this is saying, it's a 50-50. The protest organizers do not have any control over the supporters. If the supporters decide to do their own thing, they'll do their own thing. So it's basically up to the people to listen or not to listen to whatever they're being told. They have no control over that scenario. Coming to the issue that Ekuru touched on, lack of courage in leadership on the part of the government of the day, I will suggest it's not just the government of the day. I'll suggest even in the leadership of the opposition, meaning Raila himself. Today's headline in the Star he's talking about Raila, making reference to ICC. He's being weighed on to postpone the protest for the 20th. The old Raila of old, 20, 30 years ago, was more courageous than today. He would not be fearing somebody threatening him with maybe travel sanctions internationally or whatever, or being taken to the ICC or whatever. No, he wouldn't. He doesn't have that stomach for a fight that he used to have. I don't know whether people are noticing this, but that is what that headline in the Star is portraying. And he said that to his people. So he's not as courageous as he was in the past. And that means he's losing his clout. Because the reason why he got the clout that he did was his courage. He could face governments, he could face Moi, he could face Kibaki, he could face whoever was the leader of the day. But that is an indication power is beginning to slip from his hands. So that is something to watch over for the future. Concerning the 20th, I mean, everybody will make their own decision. If your job is going to be on the line because you're joining a protest that hasn't been authorized by any lawful authority, it's you taking the risk at a personal level. Those who are hustlers, who don't have, who depend on their daily income, the daily hustle, they have no time to go for such protests, because if they go for those protests, they don't eat, they don't feed their families on such days. The ones who have some extra money, maybe, but the true hustlers, not really. So
they cannot afford it.
They can afford it. But if you're unemployed, you don't have the kind of income, fine, then maybe that's your entertainment for the day. Because, those protest rallies, it's just fun. People just go there, have fun. They carry placards, they carry twigs of trees and all that. It's just fun until something goes wrong and it becomes violent. And then all hell breaks loose. I will discourage anybody thinking of marching to State House because you're risking your own life for no good reason. I would discourage that. I'm saying so plainly, even if people say I'm going against what the Azimio people are saying, so be it. Your life comes first. Everybody's trying to work for the betterment of the lives of Kenyans, not for a slaughter to take place. Frankly speaking, we haven't gotten to the point whereby, you sacrifice your life. Yeah, because fine, maybe you've got some issues with the Kenya Kwanza government, but at least they're trying. And I said I get them a year. That year is an up year. They're trying to do whatever they can. Fine, there's some mistakes they're making by not cutting spending, instead increasing spending on non-priority areas. But overall, they're still trying. So give them a little bit more time. And then if they do absolutely nothing, fine, then maybe you can go. So I'm just calling for a little bit more restraint. And please don't risk your life. It is not worth risking your life just because somebody called for a protest day, a holiday, or whatever. If somebody says that puts me at loggerhead with Raila, so be it.
Okay, you're ready. Lucia. Also in other news, it's Friday and the government has released a 64-page Gazette notice. New appointments, some declarations, I'm still going through it. So as I'm going through it, Lucia,
maybe you might see Lucia's name in the
Unajua naweza pata niko hapa saa hii nimalize show.
Mimi hata pia mimi mwenyewe naweza kuwa shocked. Naweza pigwa na butwa.
Butwa inaweza kupiga ama unaweza piga butwa wewe mwenyewe.
Butwa ndio itanipiga. Nikipata jina yangu kwa gazette notice, kibutwa inanitwanga mbio sana. Anyway, for the CAS position, if my name was to be found remotely on that list, I will just politely decline.
Are you sure?
100%.
I think people say this.
I know people say that, and I think people
so
say that when you've not been presented with that.
It's too late, Lucia. The names have already been.
I know, but I'm just thinking. Anyway, personally, I would have declined. Personally,
I'm saying this out of experience, because I've been here a lot of those cycles of us who complain about serikali imekuwa it's not keeping its word nini tulipigia kura until they appear. One of them or three of them appear and they have gone quiet. They've been appointed in office and they've forgotten completely about what the government was doing wrong.
Oh yeah.
Now they're not even thinking about anything. So I usually say Kenyans are very interesting people. They see a problem until they're benefiting from it.
Gerald, it's not just a
I'm not saying
Kenyan thing.
I'm just saying, okay.
No, it's not just a Kenyan thing. I have a Zambian friend, very powerful activist, musician. He's the Giuliani of Zambia, you know. Until HH gets into power, and he continues doing his thing for a while. And then Hichilema now decides, you know what, you need to be put to work. So he's made the PS for the Ministry of Youth and Sports in Zambia. Hey, dude. You know, nowadays, even when you have conversations, I have to be careful with. You know, the way I'd call Daktari and I just blurt out everything I want to blurt out because I know we are resonating on the same wavelength. We used to be like that. Nowadays, I call him and I have to watch my words because now yeye ni serikali mahali and I am not.
Then you are lucky because at least he picks your calls. The friends we used to have, we socialize with, they don't pick calls anymore.
I don't think he picks calls from people in Zambia. He just picks mine because I am in Kenya.
Okay.
Anyway, starting with the disagreement between Parliament and the SRC. Parliamentarians just need to sit down, take several seats and shut the fuck up. It's about time. Sisi hakuna mtu anatulipanga sitting allowance. Tumekuwa tukikaa hapa for 2 hours, Gerald. Uko na sitting allowance? No, we work the whole day, we go home.
Nasikia kuna sitting allowance lakini Bitok anakazia.
Bitok, umeanza kuwa deep state.
Hapana, mimi hata nyinyi mnajua mimi tu niko hapa na hasa laba kidogo kae Ekuru ani supu after show the day goes.
There's a quote that was said, we employ people into public offices and then we give them comforts that shield them from all the problems we are encountering. And then we expect them to solve problems that they don't have. Mimi kwanza historia siren na kupitishwa kwa bara. Kama ulitaka kufika mapema, amka mapema like the rest of us. You know, you just have the same advantages, the same 24 hours in a day that we have. We should not be giving you a privilege. If you want to get somewhere early, wake up early. Maneno kuja kutusongesha kando ya barabara na sirens. Wengine wetu tuko na sensitive hearing. Mnatuumisha kichwa.
But they are VVIPs.
VVIPs for who? Hao ni wafanyikazi wetu. We need to stop that notion. Let's kill it. Let's kill that narrative right here, right now, from today henceforth. Hakuna VVIP. Mheshimiwa si VVIP. Mheshimiwa ni mboch. When mfanyikazi wangu manze, you are supposed to do as I say or don't do it at all. Alafu mnakaa hapo after tumewapatia kazi mnatuambia sisi twende tukajiemploy na ninyi wenyewe amfanyi kazi yenye mlijipatia tumewapatia uko and you want to be given perks for doing what? We are overrepresented in this country and I don't even feel represented. Raise your hand if you feel represented. I'll wait. You know, it's madness. So this get off your high mheshimiwa horses. Y'all are just house helps. We've hired you to do the housework for us.
But
it's our house.
Is that not an insult to?
No, it's not an insult. No, I'm not. No, it's an honorable job. Being a house help is an honorable job.
The idea of servant leadership in under chapter 6, but also I think more fundamentally Article 1, where actually sovereign authority and profit.
Exactly, and being a house help is an honorable job, Gerald. You're not stealing from anyone. You're working to earn a living, and our MPs should emulate that because excuse y'alls, you know.
Bottom up.
Moving on swiftly, maandamano ya Monday. If if mtaniona uko kwa streets, by the way, I want an opportunity to go out there and for 5 minutes just scream my head off without people thinking that I am mad. You know, that's the only day I'm justified to do that. I just want to go in the middle of the streets and go like, why, Maisha? And then go back home. Alafu rudi mtaa. But I want to agree with Prof. There is no situation right now that is worth your life. We have a right to demonstrate and picket, but don't go marching to State House. You will be killed and it will be justified, and we do not want you to die, because as much as things look bad right now, better days are gonna come eventually. There's no situation that's permanent. Hallelujah. And it's a struggle for a lot of us. It's not just you, it's not me. There's a lot. I was with a young man over the weekend and last weekend, and he said right now he only has one concern, that he will not be able to put food on the table for his son. And you know, for a father, that's a big deal. I don't have kids, but I have seen my friends with their kids. I have a sister who has a child, and every time my niece asks me for something and I am unable to provide it, it just breaks my heart. And I cannot imagine how much more for a father if you are in a situation where you know you cannot provide for your people. It's just, it has to drive you to a point of madness. So just keep the faith. Tupige kelele huku kwote. But please, for whatever
but
it's worth, don't go marching to State House.
Yeah, don't march into State House, but also don't disrupt businesses.
Yeah.
Because the moment you disrupt other people's hustles,
it doesn't make the economy better.
No,
You're
it
complaining
doesn't.
about the economy, but you want to stop the economy.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Also, don't disrupt people's businesses. The Constitution is very clear. You can demonstrate peaceably. Those are the words in the Constitution. March, chant whatever you want to chant. Let it out of your nini, like Mandago said.
Yeah.
Sheke kitu kwa roho.
Kwa roho weka kwa lungs.
Yeah. But I think that really maybe should be the message. But also, if I was Raila and I want to be a responsible leader, instead of going to the streets, say, of Nairobi, Uhuru Park is there. You can feel in your stadium, express your sentiments without necessarily disturbing businesses. And we can borrow from countries like Thailand. You know, in Thailand, they demonstrate and they kick out prime ministers every so often. But business will never stop in Thailand. And I'm talking about Bangkok. You know, business will never stop. Those people will march on the streets, but you will never see anybody disrupt a business. Street vendors will still be there. You know, they'll probably also be wearing those the orange protest uniform, and they will still be doing their business. But unfortunately for us in Kenya here, plus I don't understand, for example, why in the bedroom politics of Raila Odinga, Kondele, there will be violence. This is your own home.
Yeah.
I've never understood that. You know?
There's one issue here that maybe we need to explore. Why is it that we have protest marches on the same day in 4 African countries? Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, Tunisia. Is there some international body coordinating all this? People are saying maybe it's a Soros Foundation or something along those lines. What is happening? Why are they all on the same day? Does anybody have any answers to that?
I can guess probably the leaders of those countries. I'm sure it's not difficult for Raila to pick a phone and call Julius Malema, because Malema is the one leading the one in South Africa. I didn't know the Tunisian one.
There's Tunisia and there's
I didn't know the Tunisia one.
South Africa,
it's Malema.
And
Nigeria.
And again, Nigeria, will not be surprised. Raila has had very close relationship with Nigeria. Tunisia, I don't know. But maybe they are coordinating as a leader, but I'm not sure whether there's any international body. But maybe it's telling us something about regionally. You know, when I read, I'm sure Prof, maybe Ayiela, you've also read it. When I read Blaine Harden, Dispatches from a Fragile Continent, when he talks about the leadership in Africa, and even David Lamb actually in his book The Africans described how Africans fighting colonialism thought that they have actually chased away the white man, only to replace them with what is the word he uses? I'm forgetting the exact word. Anyway, to replace them with the neo-colonialists concerned more with the self-accumulation. So there was still a level of colonialism being continued by the so-called fathers of independence. And if you go back even to our own country, in 1964, 63, the first meeting that Jomo Kenyatta held was in Ekuru with the settlers. And he assured the settlers that, listen, nobody will touch your land, you're okay. And yet, our struggle for independence started on the question of land. So there was a level of continuity. And of course, they betrayed the independence project. And I'm sure this is a similar story in all African countries. And I think, like somebody said many years back, Africa is rising, but with a lot of anger. Again, it is political leaders. And this is, Bitok could come true. I mean, I remember when I was consulting for an organization called International Idea, helping countries write constitution. So I went to Tunisia twice. And one of the things that really interested me, I wanted to find out, how did the Tunisian revolution start? And it started with a fruit vendor called Mohamed Bouazizi. He was selling his fruits on the streets, but he was always being ascared by our version of Kanjo.
Kanjo, yeah.
Then one time he just said that I've had enough of this nonsense and decided to lit himself up. And that's what sparked the revolution in the Arab world, actually. Tunisia, then went to Egypt, Libya, and the rest. So maybe a similar situation is also emerging in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, as I can see it. And I think the leadership of this continent or region need to really now think, do they even have any love for their country, for their society? And I saw, I think there's an old clip of Monroe, the pastor, Miles. He was saying that, and I shared this actually on my wall. He was saying that the problem with the political framework in African countries or in the world is that it produces politicians, not leaders.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a conversation really we must begin to have. And when people use the word rule, the ruler, to rule has some level of negativity in it. I'd rather we talk about leadership. And so our system is producing only politicians who are more interested in self-preservation, entrenching themselves at the expense of the masses. So, like Prof hinted, there are those hustlers who have nothing to do. They have no jobs. They'll find an opportunity with somebody like Raila organizing this event on a Monday, and they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They will go there, they will disrupt business, but they don't know that they're actually hurting the society even more.
They are making it worse, the situation worse. All right. What I find very interesting also is, I think apart from comparing to other revolutions that we have seen, and also PLO remember termed this as a champagne revolution, that people are eating sausages and eggs and bread and all these other nice things. Then they come out and say, guys, come, we want to revolt. Don't hit, don't do what, boycott this, boycott that. Stamped it as a champagne revolution. And I think, compared to other revolutions across the world, there has been an ideological reason behind revolutions. If it's about the cost of living, it cuts across. People come out to resist. If about injustice, people come out generally to insist injustice across board. You don't have to be a supporter of a certain political wing or all that. And I was having 2 days ago, I think on Wednesday, some other guys invited me, come Bitok, we buy you tea. So I went. I found that there were a crowd of guys, a number of guys who were having a conversation, a mix of Azimio, guys who were supporting Azimio, and also Kenya Kwanza. Just a blend of the normal way you'd go in on a social setup in Kenya now. You'll find people are doing politics, either KK and Azimio guys. And of course, they were speaking about Monday and how those Azimio, of course, they were saying we are going to show up because they're going to demonstrate. So I was asking them, so why exactly are you going to the streets? I mean, most Kenyans actually don't know why. Umasikia tu wamesema tukuje, tuende. Most Kenyans cannot explain exactly. Most of these common citizens cannot explain why they are taking themselves to the streets.
You are going to protest because Baba has said protest. Yemetosha.
So what I find very interesting is a lot of Kenyans actually on Monday, if that demo will be there, will be joining in without any particular reason why they are there. Walisikia watu wameitwa.
Because let me make 2 quick points.
Yes.
In the other parts of the world, people protest, for example, a number of things, including economy, the cost of living, but they don't go to bed hungry. Mostly. I don't know. Especially in the developed world. You see in France, they demonstrate all the time. They don't go to bed hungry. At the very worst, you can go to a soup kitchen provided by the state, or some NGO that will feed you. So you will not go to bed hungry. In Kenya, we are being told the cost of living. Yes, it's true. There's a cost of living and it cuts across. Yeah. The economic hardships are all over the world. But in some other countries, they have put certain measures to mitigate the kind of worst situation you see. You don't see images of people dying, vultures waiting on them like you see in Africa. That's not even the cost of living we are talking about, actually. What is there even a living there when you are dying of hunger? You've seen the kind of image. You don't see that in the rest of the world. So we have to make that distinction. The second thing, and this is now my message to the people who will turn up on Monday. Turn up, yes. But I want you to know this, that the people who are organizing you to go into those demonstrations, their salaries will still be paid. Their allowances will still be paid. They will jump into air-conditioned, V8s and whatever and drive off to their leafy suburbs. You will walk back to your wood, wherever that is, and then you will start wondering, where do I get the food to feed my children? That is the contrast. Yes, they are giving you leadership, but they are comfortable. They are the guys who are now getting 35 million house allowances. There are guys who have got 10 million, inpatient allowance. There are guys who have got 3 million, I don't know of what, or whatever the case may be. There are the guys who will sit. Their sitting allowance will not disappear, even on that Monday or on Tuesday. They probably go show up in the committee of parliament committee, sign in, the allowance is secured. Then they'll come and incite you against the government of the day. That is the contract I want you to know. If you are going to go to those demonstrations. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go. You can go as of your right, your constitutional right. But those are the realities.
So my point is, I think a lot of Kenyans, this might not bring any change, because a lot of Kenyans are not doing this for any passionate particular reason. We've seen several campaigns that have come in the country. The multi-party, for instance, was a cause that everybody aligned to. The sense that we needed a change from what we were seeing at that point, the way government was being run. You've seen several campaigns that have come in. The issue even to have the new constitution has been a campaign in its own. And people have joined it in a sense of responsibility and genuine demand. When I look at this, a lot of common Kenyans don't really identify with the purposes of this activism and demonstrations and all that. So my worry is it might not be able to produce any results. It's not the first time we've seen. In 2017, people died. A lot of people died. Property was destroyed. Businesses were shut down. The economy suffered a serious beating on this. And we didn't get to see any results. A few months down the line, there was a handshake, and we moved on from it. We forgot the issues that we were agitating about, IBC, that we are agitating about right now. We forgot the issues of the cost of living. That was part of the reason those guys were demonstrating in 2017. So the risk in these conversations is how less or how little it actually produces, because there's no conscience and movement under those demonstrations. All right, Kip Ruta says, Ruto alisema Azimio, or Kip, Ruto alisema Azimio walikuwa wanajitafutia vyeo, but it seems he is the real dictator we have ever seen. Tribalism at its best. I think he should finish one term and go home. Very soon we shall sing for him, finish and go, just like the former president. One thing I've also learned in this scheme of things is that there is no popular government. There is no popular
government. There can actually be, I think there can be a popular government, so long as you, for example...
Have we ever had a popular government? Because remember,
I think Kibaki's government, in my view, was in a way, maybe...
We praised Kibaki, but remember what happened to him? How we dealt with him post-2007? How we wanted him
because the election then was bungled.
Before the elections, you wanted to kick him out.
I'm one person who believes that actually Raila won the election in 2007.
Yes, but build up to that. Why is it that if Kibaki was very popular, the government, why did he want to vote? Why did we want to vote him out? Why did we vote for Raila?
He lost the referendum in 2005, by the way.
Yeah, so how then can we say Kibaki's government was popular? It wasn't.
Okay,
you never miss the water until the well runs dry.
Kibaki's government was popular and also unpopular in certain quarters. In terms of the political arrangement, remember, Kibaki came in under the umbrella of NAC, National Rainbow Coalition. And just 2 years thereafter, he also betrayed that, because then he started surrounding himself with his own people and cronies. Remember, there's even a report that was done showing how the office of the president was almost 90-something% Kikuyus only. So in terms of political cohesion, which is what brought him initially, he somehow betrayed that. And that's why in 2002, 2005, he lost that referendum. You know, you had Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, William Ruto in one camp politically. But also in terms of some economic decision that he made, he was in a way popular. For example, Kibaki, in my view, was not a selfish person, in the sense that when engineer Karoe Muriuki came up with the idea of CDF, he was quick to embrace it and say, let me give this a political lifeline. Up to now, people still appreciate the impact of CDF. In terms of workings in government, people say that Kibaki never controlled his ministers, never dictated to them what to do. We are seeing a dictatorial regime with Ruto. We saw it with Uhuru Kenyatta. So to that extent, I would say Kibaki was a better president. And I think if we were to grade Kenya's president up to now, is for me still the best so far. And of course, the economy. I mean, during Kibaki's time, I think the economy was doing fairly well.
Education sector.
Free. And even if people were eating up there, at least the crumbs were falling. Sisi wenye tuko huko chini ya meza.
Mlikuwa mnaonja kidogo. Na Lazaro mlikuwa mnapata kakitu. Alright, tufunga na bunge la mwenyeji.
Sasa unaona watu nakula nyama, wewe unaangalia tu ulimi.
Please let's have your headphones on. Tufunga na bunge la mwenyeji. Please have your headphones on. Tufunga na bunge la mwenyeji. Bunge la mwenyeji iko wazi. Nambari ni 0731027727. 0731027727. Bunge la mwenyeji liko wazi. Nambari ni 0731027727. Good morning, bunge la mwenyeji. Good morning. Good morning, bunge la mwenyeji.
Morning, Gerald. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Susan?
Very well. Now, just a little contribution to your debate this morning.
Karibu sana.
Yeah, I would just like to ask your panelists and also the listeners, what is the model of governance that we have decided as a country to undertake? And, the Ekuru is the one who was, the head of this new constitution that we have.
Yes.
And so I'm sure he'll tell you very quickly that our model of governance that we have chosen is democracy. And democracy is really fast past the post. And he will also tell you that's why there's a +1 in terms of who wins the seat. So this rhetoric of, yes, so-and-so had X number of million votes, and hence has this number of support, and hence needs consideration, and hence power sharing and all of that. I think it's very disingenuous if our governance model is democracy. When you enter into a certain game, take for example, the recent World Cup, there are rules to the game. And there were millions of people supporting the team that lost. And so were millions others supporting the team that won. When you decide to enter into, a certain game or to be governed under certain rules, then you have to obey those rules. Many people who supported, I think it was Croatia that lost, they felt so bad. But the rules of the game are, even if you win by one score, you take the whole cup home. So can we begin to respect the rules of the games by which we have decided or chosen to be governed by? And this is what Dr. Ekuru will tell you, and the other panelists will tell you. It's what John Locke calls tacit consent, where if you have agreed to be within a certain parameters or boundaries of a nation, then you're governed by the rules of that nation. So you give your tacit consent to the winner or to those in authority of this model of governance that you accepted to abide by. And so it is quite disingenuous to say we cannot ignore. I don't think it's a question of ignoring those that lost or those that supported the person that lost. It's a question of abiding by the rules with which we have accepted to be governed, which is 50+1 or fast past the post. Secondly, I would like to quickly say that we need to compare like to like. Really, here we are comparing Kibaki's 10-year rule with a 6-month rule. I think let's be fair, because you cannot use that same scale to equate the two and say that one did better than the other, given the length of time they have governed. Has Ruto been in parliament, in the executive for enough years? I would say yes. Was he at the helm? I don't think so. So that context needs to be taken into account, because hindsight is always 2020. So I think it's important that we hold the government to account, and that is our responsibility. And I completely agree. Where they're going wrong, let's point it out. But we must also remember we are a very transactional society, and that is why corruption in this country does not move as much. It doesn't annoy us as much as it ought to, because we feel if I support this, then this is the reward that I get. No, you should get a reward regardless of who you're supporting. Okay. But then, when the president goes ahead and appoints 200 CASs, we come out in arms and say, but why is he rewarding it? Because we are a transactional society. This is what we are expecting. And in fact, I'm sure many people, ask, I thought I would see you on the list given the support that you gave. Would it be conceivable that some people support just because they are happy to support X, Y, and Z, not because they expect any reward back? Okay. Thank you, Gerald.
All right. What maandamano amepotea tena. Nataka kujua kama holiday Monday, some Kenyans are saying they're looking forward to the long weekend. Now, but I think she's actually raising very, very, very pertinent issues, very salient issues in terms of administration and transaction society, because there are people, of course, who are saying, hii serikali venye nilipigia kura, nilisupport na hata hawajanipea kitu. And that is why people remain quiet when they get a reward in terms of governance. There's no guiding ideology that you can disagree. But now there's the issue of us raising an issue on the delivery of the presidency and how long it has been there. But I think you had brought out the issue of 6 months, but the 6 months in different governments, and how much they were able to do. But anyway, without being the contributor, I want to run, of course, the feedback from the caller, with all of you. I'll start with you, Ekuru, then we'll come to Lucia, then we go back.
So for me, I think maybe just to remind, is it Modoni, yeah. Anyway, just to remind her that Susan Mogwe. Yeah. So I remember the time of writing this country's constitution. I don't know whether you can remember the first harmonized draft of our constitution of November 2010 actually. No, not 2010, 2009. When we published that harmonized draft, we had actually put in a proposal around the kind of governance that Kenyans want. It was actually a hybrid system between parliamentary and presidential. But again, when we went back to the people, again, the people said, no. We want the person who wins the presidency to take it all so that we can hold them accountable. Because now we are going to hold accountable two institutions in terms of the hybrid. So that's why we removed the hybrid system and somehow we went to the presidential. But even with the presidential system that we have right now, we have tried to clip the powers of the presidents, because remember from Kanu's time, it was the president only who makes appointments. People had invested in transistor radio. So by 1 o'clock, unataka kusikia kama mimi ni minister, ile news ya 1 o'clock.
Wale pia wanakutwa kazi. Mtukufu Rais Daniel Toroitich leo hii anafuta kazi Daktari Ekuru wako na habari.
Uko kwa barabara, they come check the vehicles and everything.
Wanakushukisha unarudi unapata hakuna.
There is a story of a former minister from Luo Nyanza. He was traveling in a bus. Akafika pale OTC. Alifika pale OTC, akuta Mercedes Benz na askari wamemwongoja. He thought maybe he's been arrested. Kumbe he had been appointed over lunchtime, but he did not know. He was spirited straight to State House and he saw it. I can't remember the name of that. Aluochier, yes.
And the other one who left parliament, alafu akapata magari hakuna, everything is gone. Kumbe amefutwa kazi.
So you see, under that system, which we inherited from the from the independence, and then under the independence constitution, it was purely presidential. The president had too many powers. He will appoint judges, magistrates, DCs, everybody. But now, under our new constitution, we said yes, still presidential, but you will not have all those sweeping powers. That's why we created these independent offices. For example, the judiciary, it has to be the JSC, Judicial Service Commission, that select parliament, selection, all those. So yes, the president will give you the power to appoint eventually. You know, and that's what the point I was making earlier on. As the appointing authority, but not necessarily the recruiting or selecting authority, we expect you to protect the office, the institution that you have actually appointed. And so the practice in Kenya now has been that you give like 3 names, which for me I don't agree. I refused to give those names when we were doing the IEBC, when I was the chairman of the selection panel, because I knew they were going to do a bit of manipulation in them. And even when we gave, we expressed exactly the person we have picked because of the way in which they performed in the interviews. And at least Kibaki respected that when they appointed the Ahmed Isaac commission. Now, but unfortunately now, this system of governance which we have has been compromised because of the nature of our politics. The president wants to survive. They want to please everyone. So what does he do? He begins to compromise those parliamentary committees, the selection panels, who is appointing the selection panels, and all that. And that's where we are losing it. And I think maybe Susan did not understand my point earlier that yes, it's good to compare light with light, but we are also saying when you come into a power with a promise, with certain political promises, and you clearly know the plan. And I've also said that these people who are now in this government, because we are excusing, and I hope Susan is listening to this, we are trying to excuse people who are saying we've been in power, we've been in government, we know how government operates, we have got a better plan than the other, and therefore when I win the election, then I put my plan into action. But see, now we are hearing, backtracking, oh, give us time, we inherited empty coffers, it's not enough to do this, then it means the plan you sold to Kenyans was not truthful. Now, in terms of rewarding, any government of the day must reward each and every citizen of that country in terms of service delivery, not in terms of jobs. It's a fallacy to believe that everybody can work in government. Not everyone will work in government. And yes, some of us supported the government, not because we didn't support this government. We supported the person who wanted to form the government. That's a big difference. But even the government of the day, when it does well...
You supported the aspirant, not the government.
I supported the aspirant because I believed they are better off than the other person. That's the person I supported. But now in forming the government, we now have to look at this government as our government. By the way, the government is not the government of William Ruto or Gachagua. It's the government of Kenya. The administration may be theirs, and that's why there's a distinction there. They are the ones administering the government, but the government belongs to the people of Kenya. Yeah. So, if you're going to go the reward way, I would rather you ensure each and every Kenyan enjoys services in equal measure. Because, like I keep on asking, how then does Ruto, if he's going to say, I'm going to reward the people who invested in me, there are 7.2 million people. The people now he's rewarding did not put him into power. It is the 7.2 million Kenyan voters who actually put him into power to form the government of the day. So it's wrong of them to keep on speaking about rewarding the people who invested in them. That's rubbish, to be honest. I'm sorry to use that French word. But it's completely nonsense. It is now that you are the government of Kenya, constitutionally speaking, the government of the Kenya must serve all Kenyans, the 50 plus million Kenyans. We all expect services from this government. We expect protection from this government. We expect service delivery from this government because it's the one and only government that we have. We don't have two governments. It's as simple as that. Okay. Even the county governments is not the government of Nini. Remember, this is called the national government. The national government is the 47 counties in this country. It's the 50 million Kenyans that are there. So the idea of reward by picking a few, actually a tiny minority of the people who voted for you is so wrong. It's erroneous. It's something we should not even be discussing. Let's talk about rewarding the 50 million Kenyans. Serve us in equal measure. Okay. And we'll be okay with you. But pia ukiteleza tutakukumbusha tu.
Yeah, the remind.
Yeah,
right. Lucia.
There's a question Daktari has kept asking. My favorite people on Twitter in this season are Dr. Ekuru Aukot and the Grand Mullah himself. And my favorite people on Twitter in this season because they're not afraid to say it as it is, just because you supported somebody does not mean you're not allowed to criticize them. Actually, because you supported that person, you have the right to criticize them.
And I want them to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. If I come here today and I tell you, Gerald, kesho nakupeleka Masai Mara, tomorrow, go home, pack your bags, kesho nakupeleka Masai Mara. Next week I come here, sijakupeleka Masai Mara. You have a right to ask me why. Sikukupeleka Masai Mara. Exactly. Yeah. So when I see the Grand Mullah and Daktari here questioning things that our president has done or intends to do or has said, it makes me very happy because it shows our democracy is maturing, And I think Kenyans need to learn that life is not black or white. We have so many shades of gray in between the black and white, and people are allowed to change their minds once you have a little bit more information on a certain issue. It just because this was my position today doesn't mean it should be my position forever. If I get information tomorrow that I did not have today, and that information compels me to change my mind, I am allowed to do so. And it is totally okay. And that doesn't mean I am flipping or flopping. If I fail to keep my word, then you can say I'm flip-flopping. But if I change my mind about something because of information that I gained later on, that should actually be acceptable and appreciated. So let's stop this mentality of either or. Just because I supported the government doesn't mean I should criticize them. Or if I criticize them, then it means I am now an Azimio fella. No, let's stop putting people in boxes that they refuse to fit into. It's a free world. You're allowed to have an opinion, and you can say it and post it on your wall the way the rest of us say it and post it on our walls.
Okay. Prof, I'll be brief. With respect to having a model of government, this is our model democracy, first past the post system, respect the rules of the game. I agree with the caller. Okay. Yeah, those are the rules in our Katiba, and we should simply play by the rules. And I also share the sentiments of my fellow panelists over here. Just because I chose you yesterday and you're not acting in the manner you promised us doesn't mean that I keep my mouth shut. I should remind you of what you promised us so that you go out and fulfill your promises, because that's why we voted you in. So I think the current administration should accept positive criticism, however it's couched, because we simply want what was promised. If they say we'll have this delivered in 6 months and it's not there, we have a right to ask. So I think the current administration should take that in good stride. On the issue of comparing like with like, Kibaki 10 years, Ruto only 6 months, we being a transaction society, I think we covered that point. We'll give Ruto more time to deliver, generally, but we're also holding him to his promises. If you promise something within 100 days and you didn't deliver, that's your problem. So there I agree with Ekuru, they were lying. Yeah, they're giving people fantastic promises that they knew they really couldn't deliver. So for that, I think they should be reprimanded. And so that in future, whoever it is that's going to be campaigning for the presidency or any other political position learns to tell the voters the truth, so that people have realistic expectations and not voting based on fiction.
Okay.
Only fools don't change their minds. We are not foolish. So if I come around information that is useful to society, what's wrong with me saying no? By the way, like Prof has put it simply, you told people this, now you are changing, you're not doing it. So we have to remind you. Reminding you doesn't mean we are putting you down. We are just telling you.
We are fighting you.
We are just telling you, boss, you promised me. You promised Ayiela you are taking her to Masai Mara. So tulitimiza tu.
Nilikuomba 2K urgently ukasema unanitumia. Mbona hujanitumia?
And actually, by the way, that makes you strong as a person, because it also shows, I think, in my view, some degree of love for you. That actually we love you, because if we're not going to tell you umeteleza hapa and we are just allowing you to go into the hole, then we are not showing any care for you.
Tumekuwa fake friends. And then it's when we criticize government, it's not because we want government to fail. Ama daktari, you want government government to fail.
No.
Me don't want government to fail. Because if government fails, my problems multiply, to the power of 100. I want government to succeed. I want all those nice promises they gave us to come to fruition because it's going to help me to have a better life as a Kenyan. I want a better life. Ni kama by there amtaki better lives. Mi sijui mtazipata aje mkifunga mdomo.
But then Bitok, I have to say this, I think I also want Kenyans to stop this cheap and simplistic talk. At when you criticize government, at sababu hujapatiwa kazi.
Ama umenunuliwa, ama umelipwa na Azimio.
How do you know si hatuna kazi? Have you even checked what we do for a living before? I find that very cheap and simplistic. Government cannot employ everyone. And I am not gagged from us calling out my government, not because I want a job. Who told you I want a job? If I wanted a job, singe applies the job zote. I can PS na CIS and the rest. Who told you nataka kazi? It's very simplistic of people to say, because maybe you're not in the list. But first, check kama me I applied. I didn't. I wasn't interested. So why would it?
I know. Why also, people asking for your opinion on each and everything. It's like, I don't have an opinion on everything. I have an opinion on things that I have an opinion on. If I did not say anything about it, it does not mean I support it. It just means I did not have anything to say about it.
Na kila mtu pia kwa mdomo unaweza sema.
Mbona unalazimisha watu wakuseme?
Maybe just to throw it out there, I know we'll not conclude it. Is it possible for us Kenyans to just maybe have a mature debate where we have got divergent opinions on a matter such as, for example, government, delivery of services, without necessarily personalizing it, trying to bring an individual down? We are in Kenya, and this is our government. Everybody can say anything they want to say, but let's be mature in this debate. We will never agree on everything, for sure. People have various ways
of looking at things.
Ways of looking at things. But this thing of Kenyans just being vicious and malicious, on social media, it doesn't help. We can have a conversation. We can agree to disagree. Okay. As simple as that.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, lady and gentlemen, for coming in. It was a pleasure to have you. And this has been the Sheria Wiki edition of the 17th of March 2023. And we've been Daktari Ekuru and Prof. Aluochier and our good sister here, Lucia Ayiela. And as Monday comes and as the weekend comes, I hope you're going to focus on the things that matter to you. I think we need to start being selfish as Kenyans. If it's not adding anything on my table, on my plate, then it's not my circus, it's not my monkey. Alifikiri nasema kazi safi, maandamano ni ya baba, apewe nafasi akamilishe mkondo. Rais wetu Ruto asaidia wa Kenya. Njaa iko hapa Mathare ni balaa. Kenya wanasema njaa iko mingi pale Mathare. Mambo ndio hayo. Gazette notice kuna watu wamepata kazi, na pia the government has also said they're given duty free importation of maize.
Mimi niko na maombi kwa watu wenye wamepata kazi. Congratulations, mmepata kazi. Ako ka mortgage ka 35 million Kenya mnaenda kupewa. Ako tu ka 35 million. Unaweza kunipatia yako moja tu. Million moja tu.
When watu 50, so million ni 50 million. So mwashinda.
You know, I'm just thinking we are 50 million Kenyans. If all of us were to be given 10 shillings, 10 to 10 bob from the collective amount of money that we are going to pay the CASs per year, serikali inabaki na change how much.
But Bitok, and maybe this is a debate we can have another time, and I think Prof hinted on that, on the role of a Salaries and Remuneration Commission. If you are elected once and you are given that mortgage of 35 million, and then you are re-elected again, I give you another.
Are you given?
Surely, if the idea is for you to have a home in Nairobi so that you can attend parliament, when you want how many homes for example, if you are elected 4 times or for 20 years or for 30 years, that's an unfair. So I think that's something that SRC needs to regulate. Once you have had a home once, kwani unataka nyumba ngapi? Some of you, hata watoto wenu wamegrow, wameoa, you are probably you and your mama tu mnaangaliana tu kwa nyumba. So mortgages unataka ni ngapi? So a mortgage should be a one-off in my view. And that's how we can make a saving, because that's what makes our politics very corrupt. How many mortgages can you take?
Yeah.
Every 5 years you are taking a new mortgage. I mean, come on.
And a car grant.
How many cars do you? And now the truth be told, if today we are to do an inspection
Hawana hizo magari.
Hizo magari haziko because once you have secured one mortgage in a nice neighborhood, a car you may be changing it every other time. If you, for example, been elected for how many? Like there are politicians who've been elected like 4, 5, done 5 terms. Ukienda kwa compound utapata gari 5. Uwezi.
Haya, swala nyeti.
So that's something that
is kazi ya kuangalia kama waheshimiwa anatumia pesa vile wameambiwa. Unaona kama mlinunua nyumba. Unasikia waheshimiwa wengi sana wanaishi servants quarters hapa Kilimani. A lot of waheshimiwa they living in servants quarters in excuse. So nyumba ulipeleka wapi? Pesa ya nyumba 35
and they buy apartments of about 15 million maybe maximum, not even in some of the high end. I know some of the politicians who actually live in some funny quarters where maybe an apartment could be like 10 million because
their girlfriends are living in nice apartments in Kilimani.
They come here maybe Monday or Tuesday, Thursday they are off, so they're only here 4 days. So the house, they don't see the use of having a big home with that money. Maybe a few who have done.
I think there's an MP from Nyanza who actually once confessed, I think 2 or 3 years ago, confessed that he lives in a bed or an SQ, something like that. But anyway, is it Lucia history ya Masai Mara sijui kwani umechelewesha kusema unatupeleka ama hata unaogopa kutoa fake promises?
Watu wangu mimi sipeanangi fake promises by the way. Na acheni niwaambie nimesota. Nimesota hata sijui leo sapa nakula nini. Tuanzie hapo. So Masai Mara ngoja niomoke. Tutaenda team tako sisi
wote Ekuru watatupeleka.
Tutaenda kushutia episode live.
Nani amesema yake 700?
Mimi hata sijui limit yangu ni ngapi, but I'm just here thinking if I wanted to start a business 700 will not even pay a business permit in Nairobi. Governor Sakaja uko wapi?
Mbie Virimbi. Ile Alfredisila wa Imani. In other news, nani ametweeta mbuzi Mushendu Kiambu.
Lini?
I think should be next Friday.
Okay.
After show anasema
Governor himself.
Right.
Anasema after show tacklers we move to Kiambu.
I thought we had agreed we are going to do this show as kwa bunge la mwananchi.
Tutaanza kwenda sasa, mambo zinajua imetulia sasa, tutaanza kutembea kwa wananchi. Mambo inaenda.
Tumalize maandamano kwanza.
Tumalize maandamano kidogo. Najua anaanza maandamano na hivi tuende nazo. Anaweza kwenda pato maandamano waende nazo. Sasa leo na masahani wewe unasema. Alright, it's been a pleasure having you until Monday on the Common Sense edition. This has been the Sheria Wiki edition of the 15th of March 2023 and it ends now. We love you and bye bye. Take care.